Hi, everybody. My name is Nick, and today I'm going to walk through AI statement capture. We're going to walk through how to use it, a couple of use cases about some value adds that it provides, a couple of best practice opportunities when we're dealing with more difficult statements, and how to get those more complex statements in and leverage some of the other tools within Nitrogen, like the export feature and the ability to kind of manipulate that data at a more granular level. So let's go ahead and dive right in, and we're going to dive in and start to actually use the tool just a bit here. Just for the continuity, you'll notice that this video will have some starts and stops. I might pause it along the way to kind of help out with the flow, but we'll go ahead and dive in here. So I'm in my AI statement capture client, and within AI statement capture, it allows you to use the tool within either the current portfolio or the proposal tabs. We can select, again, those either from these tabs up top here or these portfolio objects right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click the simple one right here, and we're going to dive in. Now we've got a couple of different things going on here. I already have an account in. I've got a muted account, but to start the process, I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Account right here. And it gives me the opportunity to add in annuity, UMA or SMA, or funds, stocks, and other. And I'm going to go ahead and choose funds, stocks, and other. And then it gives me some of these options. Now, just for the sake of time, we're not going to walk through these three options here. We're just going to keep focused on the AI statement capture right here. Now, this feature, it has two capabilities within it. One is the ability to read PDFs, and the other one is to be able to read spreadsheets. The PDF aspect of AI statement capture is for all of our plans at Elite and above, and it's really designed to help for those customers that only bring in a PDF statement and not have like an exportable CSV or Excel file to manipulate and get into the platform. One note about AI is that just like any AI reading capabilities within the PDF, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to really help reduce the amount of time it takes to get that portfolio data into Nitrogen. So we click on the same area here for both the PDF and the spreadsheet. And again, this allows me to go ahead and click Browse. And I have some options already here. I'm going to go ahead and click this simple statement full PDF. I'm going to click Open. It's going to start to read it as long as it's not above 20 megabytes, and I can choose to replace it, cancel, go back. But I'm going to go ahead and click import right here to get that started. Now you're going to see a little bit of a progress wheel going on here where it's telling me it's scanning accounts. It has a couple of different statuses that will go on along the way. Most statements that I've seen take between 2 to 5 minutes, depending on the time of day and how big the statement is in and of itself. Well, again, we'll talk about some statement best practices a little bit later on, but this is going to keep going for the sake of time. Now, in this particular portfolio, I have one account already in here, and I wanted to say that here for context because one of the cool parts about AI statement capture is that it'll actually work in the background while you're doing something else. So when I do that, what we're going to lose in moving away from this screen is I'm going to lose the ongoing progress wheel and some of the updates here. It'll also lose the ability for it to tell me like, hey, it's done, but I'll be able to see the results when the new account pops up. And the other component that we've added in is the ability to give our team some feedback about how the experience was for you. So if I navigate away, all those don't show up and it just gives me the end results. But I want to show you that it will continue to work on that. And I'm just going to click on risk number because in this case, maybe I want to update the risk number and I want to do some other things with the client profile while I'm waiting for that in the background. Again, this is part of this time savings where I can continue working on the platform in other ways, shapes, or form. I can even go back into the portfolio and do whatever I want to do in this other account that I already have looped in there, and it will still go on and work in the background. I might have to click refresh, but it'll still work. So while I'm waiting for that to load, let's dive into a couple of components here. What are some areas that it provides and adds some value? Well, obviously, we've got the compliance aspect. It's on a compliance-approved Nitrogen tech stack. We're using our existing tech stack to build all of these components. It also allows there to be security enabled, remain secure because our client data is secured within our trusted Nitrogen tech stack and within our perimeter. I mentioned the time-saving aspect. Again, the idea here is a lot of the clients and firms that we talked with said, hey, when we have to do manual statements, it really takes us between 5, 10, 15 minutes on the low end, and it can be as much as an hour plus for those really robust, hard to read statements. And what we're trying to do here is trim that time down. Right now, the capabilities won't get that to 0 for PDF statements due to readability and some of the other components, but it can really see some major time savings across the board that you may not have seen otherwise. And then again, the ability to consolidate. Since we can take snippets of PDF snapshots across the board, it can actually allow us to get a whole portfolio uploaded if we wanted to do that, if we just took allocation snapshots from different statements. Again, that's a little bit more advanced that we'll talk about in the best practices section. So let's dive back in. Let's go ahead and click refresh here, and it should be ready to go. And sure enough, there it is. So we see that these account totals are the same. That's just kind of a double check to let us know that we're on the right track. And that is how to use AI statement capture. Now let's dive into the next aspect, which is really what are some best practices when we're talking about statements? So when we're talking about statements, there's a few things to keep in mind. We have two basic kind of general buckets of statements. One is the simple, right? These are the ones that I've already removed all the client-facing information, so this has all been redacted, and just kind of a general component here where we've got statements that are what I call more human readable, right? I can read the fact that here's the symbol, here's the description, the quantity, the price, the market value. And then we have our more ambiguous and complex, right? These are readable by human beings, but it takes a little bit more work, right? Because in order for me to identify the ticker or the QSIP, it's just not as clean. And what we find is within our system, the same thing applies. When we take things that are more ambiguous, again, that garbage in, garbage out mentality does apply. So just keep that in mind. Some of the best practices that we'll get to here in a second are only include those things from the statement that are able to be, that are more focused on what we want to bring in. Again, this was the best and most effective way for me to demonstrate this, but we have a statement here. It's about 10 pages. And we see as we go through here, like other statements, and again, the information's been redacted. We've got date, we've got values. I'm just going through this really, really quickly. But so far, I haven't actually seen anything that's worth bringing in except for maybe this section right down here. So it took me 4 pages to get to anything really useful that I actually need to bring into the system. And then as I scroll down, again, maybe page 5 and page 6 and maybe page 7. So one of the biggest components here to just be mindful of is, again, that garbage in, garbage out. While the system will read the entire statement, and again, we've had statements of like 30, 40, 50, even 60 plus pages being read, a lot of times it's more effective to only include the information that's needed at the time, because when you include all of it, it's going to do its best to read, but it's not going to necessarily know all the different distinctions, of all of the different aspects of a statement. So what I found, a couple of best practices are, one, only include the pages or even just the sections of pages that you need. So for example, if I go back to the screenshot here, if I scroll up to, I think it was page 3, if I only want, scroll down here, if I only need this information, maybe I'm just going to take a screenshot, put it in my notes file or something like that. And then as I scroll down, maybe I want all of page 4 or 5. I want all of page 6, but I only want that one segment of page 3 and page 4 to be included to help me kind of focus the system to read what's needed to be read. That's probably one of the biggest things that I've noticed is the need to kind of make sure that I'm only putting in the good amount of information and then allowing it to read it from there. With the simple statement, again, that was a little bit true. What we ended up doing is just taking a snapshot, or actually what I did is I only included page 3 and I didn't include page 4. So I ended up just bringing in this section, which was also on my screenshot before. And then that meant that I had to actually manually add in this bank sweep aspect, which was just cash. And I did that by hand. And I found that that was the most effective. So anyway, those are some of the tips and tricks. Some of the other components are, if you're dealing with about between a dozen, maybe 18 holdings in general, it might be faster to bring all those in all at once, just manually. What I found is that the best cutoff there is around that 15 to 18 holding mark is about when it makes sense to bring in something if it's pretty easy to read, or if it's more complex and you want to save time, kind of like what I mentioned before, that can be a good benefit as well. Now let's talk about when we're bringing in these more ambiguous statements here. What happens when I bring it in and it doesn't read at all? Great question. So glad you asked. If I go ahead and minimize these, I've got a spreadsheet here that I wanted to show you. This is actually when I brought in that more complicated statement. This is what it did. Now, what it's trying to do here is actually read all of those, but as you see here on this particular segment, it brought in all of those as separate accounts. You see columns 1 and 2, it's bringing those in as cash. Here are some different class funds. It did identify these holdings in account 1, but at the end of the day, all these actually need to be in a single account. So it's kind of misreading some of the information, and we need to help it along the way. So what I did in the product is I actually went into nitrogen. I went in and I clicked portfolio actions and I downloaded as CSV. And that's what gave me this export right here. And what this allows me to do is dive into the details and really make sure that it's right so that I can re-import it and be good to go. Now, across the board, this took me about 10 to 15 minutes. And what I did is I took this information and I changed it into this information. I added all of these account 1s on there. I made sure all the symbols were there and I double checked it to the statement. And what I found is that the allocations were really, really close. In fact, they were so close, they were between 100% and 98% complete or correct across the board. And the 98% was probably a little bit higher, if I was being honest, because all that it did is it rounded the cents and just went to the nearest dollar up or down, which gave me a lot better indication of where each holding was at. And that's just kind of one of the tricks that's happening behind the scenes. On the tickers, it got most of them 100% correct, except for some of these mutual funds. When it came in, it was looking like MEIX, it missed an I. HLIX missed an I as well. So some of those could be due to the readability. Candidly, my eyes are getting a little bit weaker, as you see with the glasses, and I needed to double check that. So those were the ones that it didn't come through. This one at row 11, actually it saved me because when I went back through and I did it by hand, so I did it both ways to kind of see which one was faster just because I'm a little bit of a nerd like that. It actually caught this one. I missed this in my manual check and it caught it in the AI check. So again, just like with grammar check and spell check, this AI capability does give you that added tool to help you kind of feel more confident in the analysis. So all of this breakdown, just to double check all of the components, make sure I had all the symbols right, took me between 10 to 15 minutes. And when I manually did it, it took me closer to 20 to 25 minutes, just making sure that I was reading it all correctly on the sheet itself. So it saved me some time. And again, that 10 to 15 minutes also include adding in my notes. So you can kind of already see that if I compress that to only do what I needed to do here for the upload, that would have been a lot easier. So if I go back into the product and want to take a look at the second component of the AI statement capture, which is making sure we're able to use the spreadsheet upload feature, I go back in, I click add account, click funds, stocks, and other, click upload file again. And then this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to click browse, and I've got a couple of different CSVs here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull in my full statement CSV, click open, and this again is going to walk through the same process. Now, this gives me the opportunity to select a file type. Now, I already know that it's the nitrogen file type, but we do have a lot of other file types that are in place here that we can also do as well. And the whole idea is that we're trying to make the AI a little bit smarter and be able to identify which file type is best used when we get to this export-import process. Now, again, if you've exported from nitrogen, using the nitrogen Excel template is the best option. And as you saw, it really allows us to kind of manipulate and double confirm all of those holdings to make sure they're right. So that way, when we import them, they come through. Again, the process is going to be very, very similar as it's scanning for accounts. And you saw that was way faster and it brought it in. Now, the only thing that it kind of messed up on was the title up top here, but all those holdings are in here and we're good to go. This brings up another good point here at the end is what happens if it doesn't recognize a holding? Now, this is actually just cash, and it just didn't understand what was trying to be brought in, even though I just didn't change the allocation description in my spreadsheet to call it cash. But that's what this is. So a couple things that we can do there. We can highlight this one account. I can go up here and I can either trash it and delete that particular holding, or I can just say, hey, I want to move that to cash, and it'll move it to cash, and we're good to go. That is AI statement capture in a nutshell. We covered a lot of ground. Again, we covered what is it, why does it exist, We walked through a lot of the value propositions, a couple of the statement best practices, and all that. So to end, one of the components to identify is like, hey, here's the steps for success when that AI statement capture process gets a little bit more robust. Again, we want to make sure we upload the PDF, export the CSV if it's a little bit more complicated. We're going to review those numbers and then re-import the file as a CSV or an Excel file to make sure that it's right in there. If you have any questions, please let us know. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.